Hello, welcome back to another episode of Somewhere Between a film and TV podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Parra, and number one, thank you so much for listening and watching. Number two, if you could please down below, like, comment, and subscribe. What did you think of Project Hail Mary, directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, starring Ryan Gosling as Ryland Grace, and based off of the book by Andy Weir? What is Project Hail Mary about? Project Hail Mary is an adaptation of namesake Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, starring Ryan Gosling as Ryland Grace, a scientist trying to save Earth from a solar catastrophe. The story follows Grace as he wakes with amnesia on a spacecraft to find his crew dead and is forced to form an unlikely partnership to complete his mission. Now, if somehow, some way you are one of the people that doesn't know one of the core components that's kept kind of secret, or at least was before the movie was being adapted, I would click out now. I would just tell you that see it immediately, see it as soon as you can, but save this, come back when you have seen it so we can talk about this in full spoilers, but hope you enjoy it. It's really great. All right, let's get into it. So, with this movie, did I love it? Did I hate it? Or am I somewhere between on it? I loved it. I loved it a lot. I loved it so much. I got to tell you right now, I'm not going to say, I've been a fan of the book for years. I read it about 2 months ago, and I loved it then, and I think that this is a really, really great adaptation. I loved it so much. I think that it even expands on a couple of things in really, really great ways. And I think I'm just going to keep saying this. I loved this movie. I have nothing but positive things to say about it. But let's get our thoughts in order. I really want to comment on the directing here. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller are two of my favorite working directors. Their filmography is super weird and super impressive. It's Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They directed and wrote 21 and 22 Jump Street, the Lego movie, masterpiece by the way, as well as produced and co-wrote the Spider-Verse movies. These guys, for all intents and purposes, are geniuses. I think that, yes, when you really look at their material, you're kind of like, is it that great? Yes, it is. I think that them also taking a really strong shot at this is maybe not out of their wheelhouse, but once you watch it, you're like, this is something that I could see them doing. And they did do it. I think that it really lends to having a really strong sense of humor about itself. But also, when things are serious, they're serious. When things need to be taken seriously, it's not played for a laugh necessarily. Like, for example, there is a really tense moment later on that we'll get into that is just so, like, edge of your seat. And I think it takes really strong directors in order to be able to execute that. And they do that so well. I think that the pacing here is also phenomenal. I think that the back and forth, the cross-cutting, the kind of like mystery of how did Ryland Grace even end up in space to begin with is a very interesting lead through into the story itself. It still adds an air of mystery while also being able to follow this guy. Even though we only know a couple things about him, piecing together what makes him so interesting and important while he's figuring that out for himself lends this air of like relatability, but also just as much as the character, which I find really interesting. I think sometimes it's hard to execute. This character is smart. This character is smarter than you. How do we portray them as having still some stumbling block issues? So giving him this like amnesia to figure out and not know everything is a really brilliant idea. I think I've loved how this character arc has been formulated since I read it. I think that Ryland Grace, as this person with character development of bravery, but almost showing it like backwards in contrast, where he ends up at the end towards where he was and how he was sent there at the very beginning against his will, where you realize that this guy's like he calls it out himself. He's like, sometimes people don't rise up to the challenge. He's like, that's me. I'm not about to do all this. and he's forced to anyway, is really, really interesting. And I think that part of those moments are very serious, but I think that plays out really, really well here. And I love Ryan Gosling's portrayal here as somebody that does grow in this way, but it also plays it with very specific, like, small things that he changes about the character throughout the movie. At first, he's very, like, set on this whole idea of he's like miserable. He's like, I mean, I'm not gonna make it back home, so well, what's the point in this? And he's kind of just like hanging out. He's very much doing a Last Man on Earth, those first couple episodes with Will Forte, that kind of thing. And I really, really like Ryan Gosling's performance in this. It is the absolute best of everything he does. And I mentioned in a TikTok that I am a completionist of his filmography and a lot of actors. He's in a lot of stuff, and he's in a lot of weird stuff, especially with Nicholas Winding Refn. And I think that this kind of pulls some of that, like, just how stoic and serious he can get. But there's also, his portrayal of like Ken and Barbie and the nice guy. So how physical his performances can get as well. This is a amalgamation of basically somebody that I understand why Ryan Gosling was cast in this role. He's charming, he's funny, he's smart, and he's just, whenever he needs someone to have a little bit more depth but not directly state it out loud, this is the type of actor that you pull, because he is just that talented and he's just that great at that type of character. And he does it here, especially when you need somebody to be your anchor as like your leading man. And he's kind of playing off of nothing for like half the movie. It's just him. And some of the flashbacks whenever he's interacting with Sandra Hüller, who I also think is really great in this, by the way, as Strat. I thought she was so great in Anatomy of a Fall. I loved that movie a lot when I saw it. And I think that she definitely gets to do that whole, like, is it German? That whole stereotype essentially of like the very humorless type of foreign person in America. And that's very much her character, and she plays it very, very well. But there's also just an additional something to her. One of the moments that's added in this that I don't, to my memory, remember that's in the book is this karaoke scene that gives her a lot of depth in this rendition of this Harry Styles song that's pretty much what the character's mentality is to begin with and why she feels the way she feels. I think that it's very smart and very clever to give character development in a character's mental state in basically like a karaoke performance because of a character that refuses to basically play her hand of her emotions to begin with. I cannot think of like a smarter like screenplay writing technique than doing that. And I really, really loved that about this. And I think that dynamic between Ryland Grace and Strat in this plays off really well. They're not enemies or anything. She even says this, but they're also sort of at odds with each other at times because Strat expects more out of Ryland Grace's character. And Ryland Grace is very much just like, I don't know why you expect so much from me to begin with, but that's just not me. And the character development of him really just becoming a brave person over the course of the movie, I really love how this was executed. I also really like the performance by the guy from The Bear. He's so good in this. And I really like, the product placement's obvious, but it's just funny. This whole moment where they're like doing this government expense account and just buying snacks and like all this stuff. And I really want to shout out the music. The score is really great. I think it's Daniel Pemberton, and the music is phenomenal and really adds this air of like not just heaviness, but also this wonder and this awe that there's this other world out there. There's like otherworldly things going on within space, because it's interesting how much this feels like it captures something so grand and so wide when a lot of it takes place within the confines of a spaceship, but you still feel this otherworldliness to everything. And I think part of that has to do with the way this is shot. Of course, the legend at this point, Greg Fraser, shot this, and I think that it is unbelievably good looking as a movie that has this almost like analog kind of like grainy aesthetic sometimes. And what I really like is they retained the IMAX ratio even for regular theaters, because the screen does get all expansive and all wide whenever certain scenes are happening. And this movie just looks gorgeous. Like, it's just, even some of the simple shots, there's like one that isn't even like, about space or anything. It's just this one it's a shot of his shoes, of Ryland Grace's shoes. And even then it's stunning. The shot composition's ridiculous. And I think that man at this point is just like firing on all cylinders. And like, admittedly, Dune looks awesome, but you can't help but be like, man, why is he not on Dune 3? But that still looks, I'm not trying to trash it. It looks amazing. It really does. But I love the cinematography in this in particular. And I really, really love Ryan Gosling in this. I don't know how I managed to go like 11 minutes without mentioning this, but there is a character in this. He's an icon. He is awesome in this, and that is Rocky. Rocky is not animatronic, I guess animatronic, right? And a mixture of puppetry, and is so great in this. Even funnier than he was in the book, even more kind of like goofy, which I like. But this dynamic that they have with each other really anchors the entire movie. I know that this could work maybe without Rocky. I've seen The Martian. The Martian's amazing. But here, I loved their relationship. I loved the bond that they develop with each other. It really anchors the entire thing and gives it this emotional crux and this core that makes you just want to root for these two guys, really, that are in this scenario. They're just two people that are alone out in the stars that happen to meet each other, and they have the same issue, and they bond. And it ends up becoming a story of like survival between these two friends that need to rely on each other. And it's beautiful, and it's like about just connection, and about how even though you could be a whole world of difference like from each other and still find a way to like really be each other's anchor. And I think that that's part of why this story resonates so well. It's very 80s core in its like signature sort of core story. At the end of the day, it's about an alien and a human that just want to help each other out so they can get home, or they can help each other's homes out. And I think that there's a real simplicity to the core of that story there. Like, for all being said and done there about all the technical aspect stuff of the book and of the movie. Oh, the astrophage. Oh, the bacteria and this and that. And I think that all of that is great and really well done. But at the end of all that, strip it all down and you have a very, very resounding story that you can relate to and you can grasp onto and you can root for. It's really, really hard to root against these guys. They're so likable, and I love their relationship that develops here. There's some additional stuff I really loved. I loved that, and Ryan Gosling apparently came up with this idea that he shows him the Rocky movies, and Rocky's like, oh, that's why I'm named that. And also that they named his mate and the planet Adrian. I love that stuff so much. Obviously, it works out that they're owned by MGM, but I think that a lot of that stuff, just the connection and all the stuff where he's bonding with Rocky and like the hologram of what Earth looks like, and the fact that they even go out of their way to, in the third act, when they finally make it to Rocky's home planet to recreate the stuff that Rocky likes, like the ocean and stuff, for Ryland's character. That stuff's so like, they didn't call attention to it or anything, but I love that. That's so clever and smart. And I think I just really also like, maybe it's because I'm a teacher, so I like this aspect of his character, that he's a 7th grade biology teacher. I think that that's just so cool that they take a character like they're like, why are you even here to begin with? You're a science teacher. And he's like, I don't know. And they're like, wait, but why are you a science teacher if you have a PhD and all of that? And then it's just because he made one crazy proclamation all this time ago, and then basically like they made fun of him for it. They basically cast him out. And I think that just that whole character of Ryland, and really sticking to his guns and being really someone who grows to be brave over the course of the movie, is just really well done character development. And it makes you like, just the best ones are where they like start off one way and then leave a different way. But the non-linear structure here for you to piece that together as well is so clever. I think that that stuff works so well. And I loved that. I think that some of the additional changes as well from the book are, I think the third act is a little more condensed, but I've seen one critique about this that I don't have, where it's like this movie feels like it ends like 7 different times, but Project Hail Mary, the book, is kind of structured in this way too, where like you're like, oh, it feels like it's wrapping up, and there's another 100 pages to go. And it's whenever you realize that you're like, oh, the thing that they bred, the predator to Xenonite, right, was then adapted and they could eat through Xenonite. So he's faced with this moral dilemma of, do I go home or do I save Rocky? And he chooses to be selfless and save his friend. And I think that, sure, you could argue that this makes it feel like the movie goes on for an additional amount of time, but you don't get that final full payoff of Ryan Grace's character development. So I will take it really any day. But one other thing here is that I don't want to call it action scenes. That's not what they are. The like space travel scenes are really, really tense. There's one that I think, you know how Interstellar has one called the docking scene? Everybody knows what you're talking about, or the time dilation scene, where it's like 1 day or 1 hour here is every, I think it's like 7 years or something like that. This has one that is out of the stratosphere in terms of how well done it is. And I believe it's definitely going to be called the fishing sequence. It's so clever, where Rocky's like, we'll develop a chain. And then he's joking. He's like, oh yeah, you can do that. And then he's like, no, I can do it. And then they have this really long chain, and he shows them what fishing is through the not hologram, but like that sphere where they're watching the Rocky movies and stuff. Awesome. So well done. So clever and so smart, and feels very much in the nature of the book as well. And so once they do it, and then it's like this really tense moment where they're going by like hanging onto the orbit of the planet. Unbelievably smart and unbelievably tense whenever everything's starting to catch fire and everything. And you can feel just that energy while that's happening. But the sequence right before that, where Rylan is capturing some of the bacteria to begin with, and it's just this like flash of red and everything's all sparkly, and you can see the planet of the green in the back, and it's just jaw-droppingly gorgeous, and it's so well done. It is breathtaking. It's awe-inspiring, and I love that there's like this little moment where he's like, Grace, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm having a moment. And I really like that when the movie wants to settle down for a few seconds and just indulge in the wonder of space, it does it. And I think that that's the type of storytelling where, yeah, sometimes things have to be manic and all over the place now for some of the stuff we watch. I don't mind fast-paced things for sure, but I think that even a movie like this, Lord and Miller, especially with their wit and their style, they still know how to deploy a few seconds of just the stillness, the silence, the wonder that comes from this form of storytelling. That's sometimes some people argue what's missing from some of the movies now. And I think that there's a reason why this movie in particular has been hailed as like they don't make them like this anymore. This is very much a throwback feeling kind of movie. It does feel like E.T. E.T. was very much like bonding with an alien, but also still hanging out with him and still kind of, keeping calm for a little while. Here it's the same thing. Like there's a whole process of what feels like half an hour where it's Rocky and Grace just bonding before they do anything else. And I think that that's really clever and really smart, and trust the audience to be like, yeah, just be patient. You'll get the things you want. And it has so much trust in its audience that I really appreciate. And I also like, yeah, of course, it's also just really, really funny. And it's also just a really heartwarming and really well done story. And overall, I adored this movie. I think that on all levels, technical, storytelling, acting, and just at the pure heart of it all is just a really solid, perfect, well done, well rounded out, perfect movie. I think that it's incredible, and I loved it so much. I think that even some of this stuff, like in terms of the dialogues, a little bit more. I love the book a lot, but some of like the humor in it's very, I'm not gonna call it dated, but it's very like 2012-ish, you know? If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. But here, still, it resounds so well, and it's still very, very funny. Also, I want a second, I love that book a lot. What I mean is what I mean. But I have no issues with this. I can't think of a single thing that I would have an issue with. I loved this. I've seen it twice now, and I adored it. I think that this movie is incredible, and I think it's just one of those like sensational blockbusters that, like, you know, the whole like you'll stand up and cheer, that kind of thing. That's this. And I'm gonna give this a score. You know what I'm gonna give this if I said it was perfect? This is a 5 out of 5 movie. Like, I'm not. How could it not be for me? I love this. I'm just gonna keep saying that. What did you guys think of Project Hail Mary? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere between on it? I want to know, and stay tuned for more upcoming reviews and TV shows. There's stuff every week. I'm very excited. It's been a hell of a year so far, hasn't it? Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Stay tuned for everything coming up. Thank you. I'll see you next time.